Happy New Year and welcome back to Jason Says, the naturopathic vlog. I'd like you to spend a few minutes with me to go over some breakfast ideas, especially we're doing some shake stuff today and we're going to talk about the benefits of breakfast. They always say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and it is for many reasons, and I'll go over them very shortly, but what I've been noticing online is that there's a lot of patients coming and asking me questions about things they read online saying breakfast isn't healthy for you, it's not as good as it used to be, it doesn't have the claims that it used to be, and it's okay to not have breakfast. And I disagree for quite a few reasons, but let's go over some of the reasons why breakfast is important. So, number one, breakfast does help the body stimulate metabolism. The reason why they call breakfast break fast is because you're breaking your fast, right? So most people have dinner at about maybe 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. They might wake up at 5, 6, 7 in the morning, or 8 o'clock in the morning. So basically you've gone about a good 12 hours or so without eating. That's when you're breaking your fast. So technically, in the morning, your blood sugar is the lowest it'll ever be because you ate 12 hours before. All that's stored into the body. So what happens when you wake up, you're using energy to burn. You're going to school, you're going to work, you're doing things, you're doing activities. So the body's got to derive energy from somewhere. So if you don't take in anything in the morning, what happens is the body starts tapping into muscle tissue as opposed to fat like people think. You start burning your muscle and instead of replacing it with fat. So it can cause some problems for people. So that's why breakfast is really important to have. But the thing is, all these studies that say breakfast isn't good, and studies have shown this and shown that, really aren't looking at what people are eating for breakfast. The standard North American breakfast usually consists of bready type things. So it's all bread, it's jam, it's peanut butter, it's different kinds of cereals that are loaded with processed starches. Even cereals that are touted as being quite healthy are still processed grains in the end. And the typical diet for breakfast is basically starch, dairy, sugar, jam, and things like that, which what happens is it spikes blood sugar. There's very little protein in these breakfasts, there's very little quality fiber. Even whole grain type grains, it's about 8% whole grain anyway, so it's very little fiber in the end for people, even high fiber touting cereals and things like that. So what happens is people's blood sugar ends up spiking like crazy in the morning after their breakfast and plummets by around 9, 10 in the morning, at which point in time people are craving sugar, they're craving starches, they're craving other kinds of snacks, and that's when people start snacking on things. So a lot of these studies, I mean, some of them are featured in the New England Journal of Medicine, the British Journal of Nutrition, and the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, saying breakfast just is not what it cracked up to be. But they fail to take into account two major factors. Number one is the kind of breakfast somebody eats. That's a huge thing. I mean, when you say breakfast isn't good, you have to look at what people are really eating. If you're eating a proper breakfast that's loaded with certain nutritions, and we'll talk about that later, it makes a huge deal in how you function throughout the day. But if you eat the wrong breakfast, yes, it can be not great for the body. It can actually be detrimental to your health. So it's the kind of breakfast that one eats that's really important. The second thing that they fail to take into account is the state of your digestion at the time of when you're eating. There are a lot of people that wake up in the morning and they are not hungry at all. And that's actually not a good thing. A lot of people say, well, I'm just not hungry for breakfast. I get hungry around lunchtime. I get hungry later on. When you wake up in the morning, like I said, the last meal you had was at 6, 7, or 8 the night before. So when you wake up, your sugar level is low. You technically should be quite hungry within at least 10 minutes to 30 minutes upon waking. You should need some sort of nutrition for the body. If that doesn't happen and you wake up and you're not hungry, then something's not right. You're either not secreting properly or there's stress on the system. And for a lot of people, they'll set their alarms so they have just the minimum time to get up and get ready, do themselves up, and then they can head out the door. But breakfast is very low on the priority list. So in the morning for a lot of people, it is very stressful. And when the body's stressed, you're not producing enzymes, you're not able to digest your food, so of course you're not hungry. The problem is when you don't have breakfast or you negate that hunger reflex, you go to work, you go to school, you do things, and you're burning muscle tissue for energy. And you're not able to regulate yourself, so people start having cravings, they start getting moody, they start needing things, and then by lunch you're craving some starchy, sugary thing to get the blood sugar up because the blood sugar is so low. Remember, when the body's blood sugar is low, you start burning muscle, and it triggers the body to store fat because it puts the body in that fasting state. Now there are such things as intermittent fasting and other kinds of things we can chat about later. And so that's not so bad as long as you're eating proper meals, but for the vast majority of people, they're not eating right and they need to eat properly in order to maintain nutrition throughout the day. So what should somebody eat when they're actually having breakfast? This is interesting because, like I said, the typical breakfast that most North American has quite a few features that make it very detrimental to your health. Number one, it's very little to almost no protein. And I wouldn't consider peanut butter or cottage cheese as good sources of protein. They're not. they're quite low to nil to none. Very, very high in starch. It's usually bread-based, which could be like white breads or even brown breads or bagels or other kinds of things, or muffins or store-bought baked goods. Or they can consist of cereals, which again are quite processed. Like I said, even the really healthy cereals that are touted as being very good are still quite processed. It's almost like grain dust, so it's extremely glycemic to the body. And you do add a lot of sugar to these things. It consists of milk products or juices, many kinds of juices out there. A lot of myths about juice. They say it has all the nutrition of food because it's got all the fruit in there and all the goodness of fruit. But remember, the juices have been juiced a long time ago, so most of the antioxidants are gone, and all that's left is basically the sugar anyway. So even natural juices that are just 100% juice, if you look at the sugar content on the box, it actually has quite a lot of sugar in it. So people have that. People love jams, they love Nutella, they love all these compounds that are very, very high in sugar as well. They try and tout them as being, well, it's got hazelnuts in it, or it's got some goodness in it, but basically it's like chocolate or it's like sugary substances in the morning. So you spread that on top of the toast and have that. So it spikes your sugar up like crazy. It's very, very, very high. So like I said, most breakfasts that people have are high glycemic, which will raise your sugar high and have you crashing by about 9 or 10 in the morning. So ideally, what should somebody have for breakfast? And again, I'll probably do a few different vlogs outlining some other breakfast options. But in general, your breakfast should consist of a decent amount of protein. That's a big deal because people often, when they think about breakfast, they don't think about protein. But protein is huge. Protein helps with muscle building, it helps with cognitive function, brain function. It also helps to lower the glycemic index of the foods you're eating in general, or the glycemic release on the body, which helps to regulate blood sugar throughout the day. So protein is really, really, really key. Another thing that's important is high density fibers. Not this fiber from whole grain, but fiber from seeds, from nuts, from vegetable material. This is good quality fiber that also helps the body, helps to regulate digestion, and also slows the glycemic index of food throughout the day. Other things that are important are good quality fats as well. And that's, again, it's something that people never think about when they think of breakfast. They think, oh, breakfast shouldn't have fat. It feels kind of odd to have fat. Good quality fats are fats found in like coconut oils, or ghee and things like that. Ghee is a clarified butter, and you can use that to cook different kinds of things. So these kinds of breakfast ideas are used to stimulate metabolism in the body as opposed to spiking sugar and dropping it and having you feel tired throughout the day. So what are the options you could have? Free-range organic eggs are great. You can poach them, you can omelet them, you can scramble them. Meats are also quite fantastic as long as they're grass-fed. So grass-fed beef, pasture pork, free-range eggs. Make sure the eggs are free-range and organic, by the way, because there's a big difference in the feed. The quality of the feed for the animal determines the quality of the meat of that animal. So make sure you know what kind of feed your animals are eating. Sweet potatoes and yams are also excellent sources of starch. I chop them up quite fine, do a sweet potato hash brown in the morning, very quick and easy to do. It's a great source of starch for the body. Sugar-free organic nut butters like almond butter, cashew butter, or pumpkin seed butter, which are seed butters, are fantastic and better alternatives to peanut butter. If you find that the nut butters don't have the flavor, because I know peanut butter tastes sweet, a lot of it's because of the sugar they add into it, you can add a bit of honey. And if you find they separate, you can add some coconut oil into that as well to make the butter smoother and more pliable to add onto food. It also makes it quite healthy. Some people will say, well, I eat organic peanut butter that's sugar-free. Most peanuts are very moldy nuts, a very processed nut as well. So of all the nut butters, the one I say stay away from is the peanut butter, but almond butter is a far better substitute for that. Grainless cereals are fantastic. So there's many grainless cereal recipes online where they basically take nuts or seeds, they might grind them up and roast them lightly or just do them raw, and you can throw that in a bowl with some almond milk or hemp milk or whatnot and a bit of honey. And you can even throw some hemp seeds on or chia seeds and whatnot and make your own cereal. These cereals are filling. You don't need a lot of it. They're very tasty, and there's absolutely no grain in them at all. So you're making sort of a grain-free cereal option you can have. And good quality fats as well. So avocado is a fantastic fat to have. We have one right over here. And cooking your food, especially your eggs or whatnot, in ghee or in coconut oil also adds great fats to the body. The coconut oils are fantastic because they help to regulate energy levels in the body, and they're a great source of fuel that goes directly to the liver. So if you wake up in the morning and you're one of those people that's not hungry, it's also very important to find out why. I mean, some patients will say that, I've been like this for a long time. That still doesn't make it right. Ideally in the morning, your blood sugar is the lowest it is, so you should have a breakfast in the morning to raise that level up. If you are not hungry, of course, don't force yourself to eat because it can lead to digestive issues, but the key is to always find out why. Again, it could be a stress issue. It could be you're not leaving yourself enough time in the morning, going to bed too late at night. That's a big one, because then the body's stressed in the morning because you're rushing to get things done and you're not hungry. These are all steps that need to be addressed because breakfast is important. It's something you should have.